Hey guys, welcome to Wrestling Days and welcome to an excited Wrestling Days because this is my favourite video of the week. This is my Firefly Fun House Things You Might Have Missed video. I am very excited to do this because there's so much to talk about. We need to talk about the Firefly Fun House episode. We need to talk about the fact that the Fiend attacked Braun at the end. We need to talk about the match that happened after Raw, which was Fiend versus Seth Rollins. We also need to talk about a tweet that has just been sent out that is juicy. It's got some very interesting stuff in it. So if you enjoy these videos, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel because obviously if there's any more news, if there's any more theories or rumours, then I will get the videos out to you as soon as I can. So make sure you're subscribed, and if you enjoy the video, leave a like below. So with that being said, let's have a look at this tweet, shall we? And you can see it on screen right now. It says, "Forgive us, Braun," which I think is straight away very interesting. The word us. Is he talking about all of the puppets and the Fiend and himself? Is he just talking about Funhouse Bray and the Fiend? Like, it's hard to know what us actually means. So, yeah, very interesting. Forgive us. And it says, "This will all make sense in the end. I'm losing control of it." That is fascinating. He is losing control of it. I'm sorry. So sorry. I really like this because there's a conflict there, or it certainly suggests that there's a conflict. Seems like Funhouse Bray sent this tweet and he's talking about the Fiend. He's saying that, you know, I didn't want this to happen to you, but the Fiend couldn't help himself. The Fiend couldn't stop himself. So you can see a real conflict. And of course, there's a real history as well, because Braun Strowman was the black sheep of the Wyatt family. He was brought in as a member of the Wyatt family, and then a draft happened and he got moved over to Raw. He got taken away from the Wyatt family, and I know that Bray has felt abandoned. He felt like Braun didn't stand by him. He literally just left. He didn't put up a fight or anything. So I think Braun was always going to be visited by the Fiend, but it seems like Funhouse Bray has kind of forgiven, and he wants to move on, but we know that the Fiend doesn't forget. But I do think there's more to this. I don't think it's just about the past. I think it's to do with Seth. This whole Funhouse episode was to do with sharing, and I think that is a big, big part of this feud. So let's carry on, shall we? Let's talk about the Funhouse episode. So it starts with Kane and Kane's picture being added to the wall of friendship. This is very, very interesting because there's lots of things that have been added to Kane's picture that aren't on the other images. You've actually got the symbol on the forehead, which is the Eye of Providence, which symbolizes God watching over humanity. Of course, it could also be like a mind's eye. That might explain why his eyes haven't been crossed out. They've been blacked out. They've been completely coloured in. And so again, you know, that's not happened to any of the other pictures. Plus, this one has had fangs added to it as well. So it's hard to know what he's trying to say through this picture, but it's definitely different to the other images on the wall. If you've got a theory about this, drop it in the comments below. Then a black picture was added, and this is very interesting. It could be a reference to Braun, who was the black sheep of the family, and of course he would be attacked later in the show. It could be a reference to Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan has been putting out cryptic tweets saying, "Should I?" and like help in code. So she's been sending out all these cryptic tweets, and it's very interesting that this looks like her profile picture. So it could be a connection there, or simply it could just be a blank frame. he might not have actually put the image into the frame yet. That could be the frame ready for Braun Strowman's picture or even someone else's picture. But we know that Braun will now be added to that wall of friendship. Bray at this point says always room for one more. This results in Bray, the kids' voices that we often hear, and a woman's voice all laughing together. And that woman's voice is very interesting because I don't believe we've heard that before. Again, this has got people excited about Liv Morgan. It seems like they're putting more fuel onto that fire. So a very, very interesting development there. The way he says, "Hello, Fireflies," was said in such a weird manner. It feels like a reference, but again, I'm not sure what to. Could be like just something from a horror film or something along those lines. So again, if you think you know what that's a reference to, drop it in the comments below. And then there's some fighting, and this is very interesting because Bray says, "What in the flat earth is happening here?" He's spoken about the earth being flat in the past, and we've spoken at length about how that's a lie, and how Funhouse Bray is lying to us. He also told us that the dinosaurs weren't extinct, so it's very interesting that he's still kind of lying. He's still talking about flat earth. What in the flat earth is happening here? It was Huskus the pig boy, my favourite puppet, and Rambling Rabbit fighting over a Seth Rollins figure. You two are arguing over Seth Rollins, but you're supposed to be best friends. That's what Bray said to Huskus and Rambling Rabbit. It kind of feels like it might be a reference to Fiend and Braun. Obviously, Fiend and Braun are both fighting over Seth Rollins at the moment. In the past, we know that Bray and Braun were best of friends. So, to me, this felt like a reference for what was to come. Rambling Rabbit says, "We've become such big fans of Seth Rollins, we don't want to share him, dude." Bray responds by saying, "Sharing isn't easy. You become vulnerable to all sorts of negative feelings like disappointment, neglect, and loneliness." There's a couple of things here. This really, for me, was the crux of the episode. The episode was all about sharing. So, for me, I think he's saying here that the Fiend is struggling to share Seth Rollins. He's struggling to let other people have matches and get victories or, you know, even just compete against Seth. The Fiend wants Seth all to himself. And then also it could be a warning that he might target Becky. He's talking about sharing. He's talking about loneliness. And, you know, I'm just saying that it could point towards Seth's relationship with Becky Lynch. He goes on to say, "I know what it's like to be abandoned by those you care about most." Again, I believe that's a reference back to Braun Strowman leaving him. Rambling Rabbit says, "That's all well and good. We just don't want the Fiend to hurt Seth Rollins." And I really like this because Bray responds by saying maybe he just wants to protect Seth. And we did see that later. He obviously took out Braun Strowman and didn't attack Seth Rollins. He says that he never forgets. Again, a reference maybe to the fact that Braun left the Wyatt family. He doesn't like to share. You know, kind of tying up everything we've said. He then breaks the figure, says sharing is caring, and finishes with au revoir, which is some more foreign language that's been brought into the Funhouse. And then, of course, the stare and see you in hell. So that was this week's episode. Quite a bit in there for us to explore. All about sharing. And for me, the big message is that the Fiend doesn't like to share. Would explain why he's taken out Kane. Would explain why he's taken out Braun Strowman. It explains why next week, rather than him attacking Hulk Hogan, like many people expect, I think he's going to go after Rey Mysterio. The Fiend doesn't want to share Seth Rollins, so I would be very concerned if I was Rey Mysterio. Then, of course, the attack happened at the end of Raw. We have covered this in another video, and I'd urge that you check that out because we go into much more detail. But the point that's worth mentioning here is when he puts the mandible claw onto Braun, he does scream, "Why?" He's screaming, "Why?" And again, I feel like that's a reference to Braun leaving the Wyatt family. And then afterwards, once the show has ended, there is a dark match between the Fiend and Seth Rollins. And what's interesting here is it appears like something goes wrong. It seems like the referee signals to turn the lights off, and Bray Wyatt very quickly gets out of the ring. We don't know the reasons why that's happened. I did theorize in my video earlier that it could be an injury. We honestly don't know. We still don't know. But people and reports are now starting to come out that it could have been that the Fiend's mask broke. It could be that they couldn't continue because the mask snapped and the Fiend needed to call it off. And so that's why it finished early. It certainly felt like it had finished early. But as we said, we go into that match in a lot more detail in the other video, and I will put a link to that at the end. So that was pretty much it for this week. Certainly a lot to talk about, a lot to digest. I thought it was good. I was really on board with it. I loved the attack of Braun Strowman. Seth Rollins, again, cowering in the corner, looked awesome. So I am firmly on board with this build towards Hell in a Cell. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.